Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because stories like this don't just entertain, they stay with you. If you enjoy emotional storytelling, quiet moments, unexpected connections, and stories that feel real, you're in the right place. Now sit back, relax, and let this story take you somewhere quiet, somewhere snowy, somewhere unexpected. The narrow road stretched ahead of Emily like a pale ribbon, winding through tall pine trees heavy with snow. Everything around her looked untouched, as if the world had paused just long enough for her to pass through it. The snow wasn't falling hard yet, just a gentle drift, soft flakes brushing against the windshield like whispers. She kept both hands on the steering wheel, though there was barely any traffic to worry about. The road was almost empty, quiet in a way that felt both comforting and unsettling. Her fingers tapped lightly against the leather, an old nervous habit she hadn't been able to break. Each tap echoed the thoughts she had been trying so hard to silence since leaving Boston. 3 months. That was how long it had been since her engagement had ended. 3 months since the life she thought she was building disappeared in a single conversation she hadn't seen coming. Or maybe had, but refused to acknowledge. Emily let out a slow breath and focused on the road ahead. She had told herself this trip wasn't about running away. It was about breathing. About giving herself permission to feel something other than disappointment, exhaustion, and that dull ache that followed her everywhere. Vermont was supposed to be quiet this time of year. Empty cabins, frozen lakes, long nights with nothing but firelight and silence. That was exactly what she needed. When the cabin finally came into view, the sky had begun to darken. Thick gray clouds rolled overhead, swallowing the last traces of daylight. Emily pulled her car into the small gravel clearing and turned off the engine. For a moment, she just sat there. The quiet wrapped around her like a blanket. Then she stepped out, the cold biting immediately through her coat. She pulled it tighter around herself and looked up. The cabin stood among the trees like something out of a winter postcard. Its wooden exterior was dusted with fresh snow, and a thin line of smoke drifted lazily from the chimney. A single porch light glowed warmly, cutting through the growing darkness. It looked peaceful, inviting. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt her shoulders relax. She imagined herself inside, curled up on the couch, a book in her hands, a mug of hot chocolate slowly cooling on the table beside her. No phone buzzing, no reminders of what she had lost. Just quiet. But that sense of relief didn't last long. As she opened the trunk to grab her bags, headlights appeared at the end of the narrow path behind her. Emily froze. The bright beams cut through the falling snow, growing closer with each second. Confusion replaced calm almost instantly. She wasn't expecting anyone. The rental listing had promised privacy. She had double-checked twice. A black SUV rolled to a stop beside her car. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out, brushing snow from his jacket. He paused when he saw her, surprise clear on his face. "Hey," he said carefully, his voice calm but uncertain. "I think there's been some kind of mix-up." Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" "I booked this cabin for the weekend." Her stomach dropped. "That's not possible." "I booked it too." They stood there in the cold, staring at each other before both pulling out their phones. Side by side they compared screens. Same listing. Same cabin. Same dates. Same confirmation. Emily let out a frustrated sigh. "You've got to be kidding me." The man ran a hand through his hair, clearly just as stunned. "The nearest town is over an hour away, right? And it's getting dark," Emily added. He nodded. "And my car probably won't survive these roads again tonight." There was a brief, awkward silence. "I'm Daniel," he said finally, offering a small, polite smile. "Emily." She glanced toward the cabin, then back at him. "There are 2 bedrooms. We can just stay tonight and figure it out in the morning." Daniel hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Yeah, that makes sense. And just so you know, I'm not a serial killer." Despite herself, Emily laughed softly. "Good. That would have been awkward." The moment they stepped inside, warmth washed over them. The cabin smelled faintly of pine and old wood, comforting, familiar. A stone fireplace sat in the corner, unlit but ready. 2 small bedrooms branched off down the hallway, and the kitchen was simple but cozy. Emily set her bags down and took a deep breath. It still felt strange. Sharing a space with someone she had just met wasn't exactly part of her plan. But Daniel moved easily through the cabin, respectful and quiet, never invading her space. "I can start a fire," he offered. She nodded. "Thanks." Soon, the soft crackle of burning wood filled the room. Shadows danced across the walls as the fire came to life, turning the cabin into something warmer, safer. They talked about small things at first. The storm, the drive, the booking mistake. Neutral topics that didn't ask too much of either of them. But beneath the words was something else, something unspoken. They were both here to escape. As night fell, the snow outside thickened. The wind howled through the trees, rattling the windows. Emily stood by the glass, watching flakes swirl in the darkness. "Looks like we're stuck," she said quietly. Daniel joined her. "Yeah, guess so." There was no frustration in his voice, just acceptance. And oddly enough, Emily didn't feel uneasy. For the first time in months, she wasn't thinking about her past. She wasn't replaying conversations or questioning herself. She was just here, in this quiet cabin, in this unexpected moment. After dinner, they sat by the fire with mugs of tea. The flames reflected in Daniel's eyes as he stared into the fire, lost in thought. Emily considered asking him what had brought him here, but didn't. Some stories didn't need to be rushed. The storm grew louder, but inside, the silence softened. Emily leaned back on the couch, warmth pulling her under. Her eyelids grew heavy. Daniel noticed and quietly placed a blanket over her shoulders before heading to his room. Neither of them knew it yet, but this night, this accident, would change something deep inside both of them. That'd be why the full darkness settled in. The storm outside had turned fierce. Snow slammed against the windows like waves, and the wind pressed hard against the cabin walls. Inside, the fire glowed steadily. Emily sat close to it, holding her mug with both hands while Daniel struggled with a flickering lamp that refused to stay on. Finally, it clicked to life. "There," he said, grinning. "Not a handyman, but I can fix a lamp." Emily laughed softly. "Impressive. You've earned yourself more tea." Their hands brushed as she passed him the mug. The moment lingered, warm, quiet, unforced. They sat near the fire as the storm raged outside, the world beyond the cabin fading away. After a while, Daniel spoke. "So what brought you out here?" Emily watched the flames. "I needed quiet. My life got messy." She hesitated. "I was supposed to get married last spring." "I'm sorry," Daniel said gently. She shrugged. "We wanted different things. I just didn't want to admit it." Daniel nodded slowly. "I understand. My dad passed away 2 months ago. He was my best friend." Emily looked at him, her eyes soft. "That's a lot to carry alone." He smiled faintly. "Yeah. I thought a few quiet days might help." Their eyes met, not with sadness but understanding. The hours slipped by easily after that. They talked about baking, photography, getting lost on trips, and loving silence more than crowds. When the power finally went out, they laughed, lighting candles and letting the fire do the rest. Outside, the storm continued. Inside, something gentle and unexpected began to grow. When morning came, the world outside was buried in white. Emily woke on the couch, the blanket still wrapped around her shoulders. Sunlight filtered through frosted windows, turning the cabin golden. For the first time in a long while, her chest didn't feel heavy. She didn't know what would happen next. But she knew one thing for sure. Sometimes life doesn't follow plans. Sometimes it places you exactly where you need to be, with someone you never expected, at the moment you needed it most.